What's up, everyone? I'm Mark. This is Spiguyver Backpacking. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm out here to talk about one of my favorite topics, hammock camping. So it doesn't matter whether you are using a very simple hammock like this, the Superior Gear Classic hammock, or if you've got a modular setup like the Dutchware Gear Chameleon or something in between. The general principles of hammock camping and what it takes to set up a successful hang, they're gonna be the same no matter what you're using. Even if you've got, and dare I say it, one of those cheap Chinese-made hammocks, like the parachute hammocks, the Eno type hammocks that are out there. If you've got one of those, the rules still apply. These fundamental principles that I'm gonna talk about today still apply. And so what's driven this video is I got out, I haven't been able to get out. Yeah, no, that's it. I haven't been able to get out. And so I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube, and I've been alarmed at some of the things I have seen. Other YouTubers, some with a lot of subscribers, some with a lot of dedicated followers, I've been extremely alarmed at what I've seen them do and how I've seen them talk about different hammocks. It's one of those things, if you've got a good follower base, saying the wrong thing or having the wrong information put out there, you're creating a lot of problems. So today, we're gonna talk about hammock camping, and you're doing it wrong. So let's go. Okay, so let's start with the basics. The hang of the hammock, the suspension. So no matter what type of suspension you use, I use just a strap and I use a Beckett hitch knot to attach my continuous loop at the end of the hammock to my suspension. It doesn't matter what type of system you use. You could use something with a hook on it. You could use a carabiner system. You could use whoopee slings. You could use any type of clip system that's out there, cinch buckles, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all gonna be the same and the principle is exactly the same. So here is the key and the thing that people are missing. Now when you hang a hammock, you don't want it to be super tight. You don't want this suspension to be almost parallel to the ground. What you want is a 30-degree angle. And a really easy way, a rule of thumb, is to make a little pistol with your hand and put that up against your suspension. And as you can see here, if it touches your thumb and your pointer finger, or somewhere very close to that, that's about a 30-degree angle, which is the perfect hang angle. You're gonna want that each and every time, and that's going to create the right amount of pull on the trees, the right amount of stress on your hammock, and on your ridgeline. The ridgeline is another important piece. So I've got a ridgeline on this one, and this is an adjustable ridgeline, and so I can adjust the sag. What the ridgeline does for you is allows you to hang the hammock so that you have the same sag every time, so that you can find that sweet spot in your hammock every single time. So it is important. A lot of the lower end ones out there, those parachute hammocks that I talked about, the Enos, do not have a ridgeline. You can always add a ridgeline. A good starting point for a ridgeline, if you don't want to go with adjustable, is 83% is about the sweet spot. And so for simple math, that's about 10 inches for every foot. So a 10-foot long hammock would have a 100-inch ridgeline, and that's a good starting point. If you go with an adjustable, you can then make fine-tuning adjustments to get that sag of the hammock just right so that you find that perfect lay. Right here you can see pretty much what a perfect hang looks like. You've got that 30-degree angle on the suspension on one side. You've got a 30-degree hang angle suspension on the other side. You've got your ridgeline, which is taut but not tight. And then that hammock hangs down below there to create that pocket that you lay in. So let's talk about how tight this ridgeline should be. But it's not when you're standing next to it, it's actually when you're in it. So let's get in the hammock and take a look at the ridgeline and talk about how tight that should be. Okay, to test whether or not this ridgeline that you've got here is tight enough, you have to get into the hammock. But as you can see from sitting here, this is really loose. But it's not when I'm sitting in here, because when I'm sitting in here, I'm pulling down on just one spot. When you lay in it, you actually distribute your weight across the hammock, and it puts a different pull on that. So let's go ahead and kick off our shoes. That's an important piece. You don't want to get into the hammock with your shoes on. It creates a lot more stress on the fabric, and a little tear in here, because of the stresses that are in a hammock, could really tear it and rip it apart and end up with your butt on the ground, which is not something you want. Okay, so now I'm laying in my hammock. I reach up and I should be able to put a good bend in that ridge line. I shouldn't be able to make it completely straight up and down real easy, and it shouldn't be a tough thing to bend that. But with those 30-degree hang angles, with this on here, I should be able to do this every time without a problem. And that's what you're looking for, is about a 45-degree. Some people say a 90, but a 45-degree for me is about perfect. Okay, now more than any other mistake I see with a hammock, it is how people lay in a hammock. So most people just think of a hammock as a lounging tool, something that you lay in like this. You just get in it and you lay in it. And the fabric feels really tight below me, and I am in a pretty big U. My butt's low, my feet are high, my head's high. And while this could be fun for just like sitting around camp, and you know, I could snap this thing up because this one has the ability to do that. You can snap this one up and it's kind of like a little cocoon here. This is not the way you lay in a hammock to be comfortable. Now, the way you lay in a hammock is diagonal. Now, some people like their head on the right side, some people like their head on the left side. I like my head on the right side, but that's actually a little different than the way most people like it. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so here's how you see a lot of people lay in the hammocks. And I've seen big YouTubers put up videos on hammocks, and they're laying in a hammock just like this, trying to sleep in a hammock like this. Yeah, it's fine for lounging, it's fine for a day at the beach or whatever. But if you're really gonna be serious about camping in your hammock, this is not the way to do it. You offset your body so that you are diagonal across it. Your feet are on one side, your head is on the opposite side, the ridgeline runs down between, and now what you find is you end up a lot flatter and a lot more comfortable. Now, you may have to move around to find that sweet spot, but once your butt settles into that spot, look at this, I'm a lot more flat. This is a whole lot more comfortable, and it opens up the hammock and I have more room in here. If I had anything hanging from the ridge line, it's there. And if you're using a bug net, this is another key piece. If I'm using the bug net, by being diagonal, it pushes it out and it opens up the interior. If I lay flat, you can see the sides come in. Like if I lay just straight down the middle, I'm right down the ridge line. The sides come in, and if I had a bug net, that bug net is gonna be right up against you. And so it kind of defeats the purpose. A mosquito can land on a bug net and put its little biting nose piece right through there and get you. But if you're laying in it properly and it spreads it out, well, see, my head's in here, my arm's down inside, I've usually got a quilt or something there, and then the bug net's up here, and the bugs are quite a ways away from me, and it's not an issue. So that's why you lay diagonal. Plus, it's just a hell of a lot more comfortable. And I mean that. All right, now the last piece of this, the last piece I want to talk about is the hammock itself. So, you know, I mentioned that there are a lot of off-brand, Chinese-made, knockoff type hammocks out there, and even like the Eno hammocks, which are extremely popular. They're just not very good hammocks. The material's not great, the dimensions are horrible, and then a lot of them have seams within the hammock, which is just a bad idea all around. Comfort-wise and durability-wise, having a seam in there is not good. You want a good quality fabric, you want it to be of a good dimension. So you're looking for something that's at least 10, usually 10.5. Most of the standards right now are at 11 feet. So if you find a good cottage vendor, most of their standard off-the-shelf hammocks are gonna be right at 11 feet. Now you can find 10.5, and for shorter people, the 10.5 works really well. And you find some people actually leaning towards 12-foot hammocks at this point. But if you look at something like the Eno or some of the other knockoff ones, the ones you can get for like 20 bucks off of Amazon, you're talking about 8.5, 9.5 foot hammocks, and they're usually pretty narrow. You want something that's at least 58 inches wide. For taller people or heavier people, you want wider than that. I am only 5'8", and most of my hammocks are in the 11 foot by 60 range. I've got a couple that are at 62, I've got a couple that are at 58, and I do have, this one is a 10-foot hammock, not my favorite length. I have a 10.5 foot hammock that was custom built for me, and that one is pretty much perfect for me. 10.5 is great for me. Now people like my buddy Frozen, he actually prefers a 10-foot hammock, and he has custom 10-foot hammocks made. And it's just because he's a little bit shorter and can get away with that. So find what works for you. But it is key to get a good hammock. You're going to sleep better in a good hammock, and you're going to sleep better if you know how to hang it right and you know how to lay in it correctly. Look, I've seen way too many big name YouTubers out there putting up hammock videos, and they don't get it. They don't know how to lay in a hammock. They don't know how to hang a hammock. So if you're gonna go out and do it and give it a fair shake, do it right. This is how you do it. 30-degree hang angle, a nice tight, but not too tight, a taut ridgeline where you can put a 45-degree bend in it while you're laying in it, a diagonal lay in the hammock with your head on whichever side works for you is right. Make sure that you're in a symmetrical hammock if you're gonna be flip-flopping between the two sides. There are hammocks that are cut for a left head lay or a right head lay, and you've got to make sure that you know which way you prefer before you order those. For me, I know I'm head right, foot left. A lot of people out there, I would say the majority, are foot left or head left, foot right. So I'm a little bit different in that way, but that's how I have my hammocks made, and that's how I like them. This one is asymmetrical, so you could lay either way, and there's a lot of them out there that you can get either way. Make sure that you do your research. I've got a whole series on getting into hammock camping, the different types of hammocks that are out there, the different suspensions that you could use, the quilts to keep you warm, or using sleeping pads and how those work. Tarps that go over the top to keep you dry in those rains. Check out that series. I will leave a link right up above to that. But just do it right. If you get out there and you half-ass it, you're not gonna have an enjoyable night. Just do it right. I appreciate it, guys. If you have any comments, any feedback, leave them down below. Let me know what you're hanging in. Let me know how your hammock setup works for you. I appreciate it, guys. I'll see you down the trail.